All right, ready to go? All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So, how about this fog?
Yeah.
So, coming in this morning, Darwin, of course, comes from Orlando, and he said he counted 7 wrecks, and my commute this morning was almost 2 hours. It's just, we now know 2 things about Florida drivers. They can't drive in the snow, and they can't drive in fog, evidently. So I had, I was speaking to someone who had just moved to Florida, and they said, gosh, I can't understand why the automobile insurance rates are so high. And I said, well, here in Florida, we let our 97-year-olds drive. So, All right. A little levity. We'll get started here this morning. First up, Nelson Toll has an update for us. Nelson, come on.
About a new great course. It was starting on Wednesday this week. It's the world changes because of events that happen to us all over the world. Our first lecture is at 2 o'clock Wednesday, the South Lobby.
Grand Lobby.
In the Grand Lobby, yes. Thank you. And we may be there for the rest of the year. It depends upon construction here in the town hall. So hopefully we'll be able to come back here. Rufus Fears is the lecturer, and he was the lecturer that took us through wisdom of history, and a great storyteller, a great historian. So anyhow, we're going to do 2 lectures each day, 2nd and 4th Wednesdays, 2 o'clock. So please come and enjoy it. I'll give you a timeline, a schedule of all the lectures, so if there are some that you really want to come listen to, you'll know which ones. On the other hand, if there are some that you already know about, feel free to skip that one.
What's the first one?
First one is Hammurabi, and tomorrow we'll hear Hammurabi and we'll hear about Moses. Okay?
Will that be on 7:32?
No, we haven't figured out how to do that yet. So, but that's a good idea. We should.
Nelson, what is his background?
What is Fear's background? He was a professor at the University of Oklahoma and other universities, Harvard being another one. He died 10 years ago or more, but we have kept him on video film so we can enjoy what he had to say back then. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Regency Oaks residents. Good morning. You all are champions. Those of us who are on the gift fund committee, we're just so pleased to be able to distribute your gifts of love and thanks to our associates. Friday of last week, we have distributed 201 gifts to our employees. And we had a larger gift fund this year, thanks to you, than we've ever had before. So there were a lot of smiles around here on Friday. You probably saw them, and you're responsible. Thank you so much for your participation in this program. The associates are really grateful, and so are we who had the joy of sharing your generosity with them. Thank you.
Good job. All right, first slide, Don. So is Judy Studebaker here? Okay, you are. Good. I'm going to need your help here. So let's do an update on COVID and what's going on. So just as we had talked about last week, we will begin to develop some data and have a better understanding of this new variant. The thing that we talked about looks like it is proving to be true. It's a lot more contagious than the Delta variant, but it's also a lot less dangerous. So basically, that's good news. Again, this looks to be trending to be more flu-like than pandemic-like, and that is what the scientists are looking for. Is that with every variant that comes along, it's going to get less and less contagious, less and less dangerous, and more like the flu, just the common flu. So that's a positive. 1/3 of the states are now reporting, and Judy, give us the correct pronunciation. Omicron. So,
Greek letter, and I don't know why they skipped epsilon. A whole bunch of other letters, yeah.
okay, good. So, last week, you'll recall, we had the map up there, and it was not in the United States, and we said, yeah, it's going to definitely come to the United States. And so already, just 7 days later, we're seeing it in 1/3 of the states are reporting cases of Omicron. The positivity rate in Pinellas County continues to look outstanding. We're at 2.8%. Those are very, very low numbers. If I had the chart, it would be less than the flu. The flu rate in Pinellas County currently is up above 7%. So you're 1/3 less likely to get Delta or one of the COVID variants than you are the common flu. So again, that continues to be very positive for Regency Oaks. And then one last thing, Regency Oaks, we currently have no residents with COVID. We have no staff members across any of our product lines. There was someone in the north building that has been diagnosed with the flu, and that was generating a lot of interest yesterday. But it was simply the flu. It was nothing else. All right, next slide. Now, I know you can't read this, but so this is just a follow-up on the survey. And last week, what we were looking at, that's a good idea. So last week, what we were looking at is the drivers, and we had come to the point where we were having the discussion about we can ask you a lot of questions. We asked you 94 questions, but not all of the questions were weighted equally. Some of the questions were what we call drivers. They're more important to you. They help drive the organization and help us achieve our mission statement and have more weight than some of the others. And so what we went back and we wanted to we just looked at the global. These are the big summary questions. And we wanted to take a look at improvement themes across the spectrum and what we received. And so 24%, our highest area where where improvement was suggested was activities. It was about 24%. Again, we think a lot of this is influenced by the fact that when we did the survey, we didn't have activities underway. Our transportation was limited. Our food and beverage department was shut down. We were delivering your food to your apartment. And so all of this impacts it. But 75% of the residents were satisfied with activities, but 24% said we could work on improving our activities. 19% said we could work on improving our housekeeping services. Care, health, and wellness was 16%. Dining services was right there at 16% as well. Supportive services are a combination of sort of roll-up summary that includes maintenance and outside vendors. It's a sort of a broad category. Miscellaneous was 5%, management was 3%, staff was 2%, and finances was 1%. So again, we're sort of looking at the bottom side of the survey. What are the areas for opportunities for improvement? And the reason we're sharing that is as we now start to develop the action plans and what we're going to do to take those opportunities and turn them around, we're going to be focusing not on what we do great, but on the areas where we could do better. And so that's why as we go through this every week, we're going to look at sort of the bottom side of the survey. Next slide. So this is sort of interesting, and This one's going to take some feedback. I think we probably are going to take this out and do a focus group with residents and just invite you to come and provide feedback. This was something that was a little surprising. This was a custom question. And what that means is the survey company does not ask this question of every retirement community that they survey. And so LCS had an opportunity to write a couple of custom questions. And I think we ended up with more than a few. I think it was like 14 custom questions. And so what we ask about is engagement. And it's different than satisfaction. It's not related to how satisfied you are. It's how engaged are you with the community? What's your level of engagement or involvement? And so a sense of belonging to my community was only about 69%. This is lower than what we would have anticipated. My community helps me maintain all aspects of my well-being, 66%. My community helps me to live my life with purpose, 63%. And I feel like I have a voice in my community, 49%. So that's really low. And particularly with as active as our residents are in the governance of the community. You know, RoRo is very engaged. They have 9 standing committees, all with committee members. And so this is one of the areas, like, I think our next plan is to have a little bit of a focus group and ask residents to come back and share specifically what are your thoughts on this? How can we drive this score up as a community and try to make it look better? Next slide. Here's an update on the hiring. How are we doing? And so you can see since the seminal event back on the 15th, where we lost, if you count 19 and 5, it's our 23 associates that at the very end just walked out having chosen not to get the vaccination. We've seen positive growth over in that net column over on the right-hand side. We had positive 3, positive 2, positive 2, positive 4. We had a 0 week. We did have back on 11/26, we were negative 2. We had 1 hire and 3 discharges or terminations. And so as I look at this chart, I'd like to think that the trend line is straight up, but it's not. It's going to be a gradual line. And I sort of liken this to breathing. You have to inhale, but you also have to exhale. And so we're not going to see a positive number every week, but we're looking for trends. And so sure enough, on the week of 12/3, we saw 0. And this week is not yet complete, but right now we have 5 new hires in our foundations program. That's our orientation onboarding program, and we have 0 that we've terminated this week. And so I've told the department managers, you can't fire anyone for Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So we're thinking maybe a net 5. And so again, what we're looking at is the long-term trend. We're not going to solve this problem in a week or a month. This is going to be middle of the first quarter before we start to get back to full staffing and being able to get back to full services. So the team is working really hard on this. They're focused on recruitment and retention, and we're beginning to see a positive trend line. Next slide. So bulk cable update. And so I promised to come back and give a brief update on what's happening with our bulk cable. We did have a meeting last week, and it was still at the point where it was more informational than definitive. And I was hoping we would be a little further along, but we're not there. But I wanted to share with you where we are. At this point, we decided that Spectrum is probably going to be our best answer. And so this is sort of a split decision. I want to give you a little bit more background. You have to have a bulk provider. That's not something Regency Oaks can provide. There are a limited number of bulk providers. There's Frontier, there's Charter, there's Spectrum. You can look at one of the satellite providers. There's Dish Network. or DirecTV. But we've looked at it and we're sort of thinking at this point that Spectrum is probably the best solution going forward, primarily because they own all the infrastructure. And so there is a possibility that if we were to look at bringing in somebody else, that Spectrum, if they wanted to play nasty, could come and say, well, yeah, that's fine, but we own all the wiring and we're going to disenable it. So we're thinking Spectrum might be the best answer. Now, here's the thing with Spectrum. Whether you're looking at Frontier or Spectrum or any of the other providers, the basic bulk service that they provide is pretty much the same across the board. Where the difference maker comes is the service component. It's not the feed, it's the service. It's the hookups, it's the who do you call if you have a problem, what do you do if you lose your connection. And so that's where, in my opinion and many others, that's where Spectrum sort of falls off the chart, is they've had some service issues. You know, remember the J.D. Powers rating, Spectrum is right down there at the bottom. And so they have some service issues. This is one of the areas where we think we can supplement it with ACS. And ACS, if you don't recognize that name, is the provider that Regency Oaks uses for Wi-Fi and cabling for our operations. So we own about 52 computers, and ACS is the one who supports the computers and the mobile devices and the tablets that Regency Oaks staff uses. And we think that expanding into like a concierge arrangement with ACS in terms of providing service is sort of how the future is going to look. Now, we're not there yet, but that's what we're thinking. Here's the marching orders that we have given there's a team working on this, and these are the marching orders. We want to, one more thing, I'm sorry. The availability to convert to Cat 6, which is wiring. Currently we use coax. It's very old. It's been in the ground for 30 or 40 years. It was 30-year-old technology when it was installed 30 years ago. So it's not fancy and new and modern, but the ability to convert to Cat 6 just we don't think exists. And here's why. Last year, we ran Cat 6 wiring down all of our corridors. And so if you want to go stand in your hallway, when I turn on the system, it works really, really well. And you can stream, and it's great service, and there's no pixeling in your signal, there's no degradation. It really, really is effective. The problem is getting that signal into your apartment has been almost impossible. We've had technicians out, they've run all sorts of tests, and there's just no effective way to get that Cat 5 Wi-Fi signal into the apartment, even with a system of transmitters and repeaters. And so we've made the decision that our best option is going to be cable, even if it means having to dig up the old cable that runs from the road to the bulkhead before it's distributed. The cable inside the building is in really good shape. It's the cabling that has been buried underground for 30 plus years. That's the cabling where we're having some issues. So that's where we're headed there. And so then the change that we would look at is going from digital adapters. That's what you're currently using. And here's what a digital adapter does. It's very similar to its name. It takes a standard low def or non-def signal and converts it to a high def. But it's not a true high def picture. It's adapted. And so a digital adapter is just a way of converting a signal that's coming over a coax that is standard and trying to make it look like a high def picture. And so any of you ever had the experience where you go out to Best Buy and you're buying a new smart TV and it has all the latest bells and whistles and these great pictures, and you're looking at it on the showroom floor and it's absolutely beautiful, and then you bring it home and it's like, that was sure a better picture in the showroom. Well, that's what's happening. It's because we're using digital adapters, and that's the little box on the backside of every TV at Regency Oaks. It doesn't matter whether you have a smart TV or an old TV that's 30 years old. The signal is being adapted, and when that happens, you lose the high def value of the picture. So how do you fix that? We think at this point the best way to do it, if you can't improve the signal through Cat 6, you're still stuck to the coax. The signal is still there without degradation, but the cable box allows the true high def to show through. And so we think that's going to be the secret, is moving from digital adapters to a cable box in each and every apartment. Each and every apartment would also have to have modems and routers for Wi-Fi and streaming, because we know that we cannot get that signal from the hallway into the apartment. Great question, you might ask. Why can't you? And here's the issue. We were able to run the Wi-Fi signal down the corridors because we have mechanical ceilings. And so you just took a panel, slid it out of the way, went to the next panel, and just were able to carry those cables all the way down the corridor. It doesn't work that way in your apartment. All the cables in your apartments are buried under a hard ceiling. So in order to come in and solve that, we'd have to come in with jackhammers in every single apartment, take out your ceiling, so that we could run a cable wire, and it's just that's not practical. And so we've looked at this and just cannot figure out how to do that. And then the one other thing that every resident will ask about is it DVD capable, which means can you, and the answer is yes, and it means can I record my TV shows and have the capability of recording something and watching it later, and yes, that is something we're looking at. So, what's not true? Yes.
Spectrum has their system in the hallway, and in the hallway there are splitters that says, okay, this is going to this apartment, that apartment, and I've had Spectrum in my unit, and in the HVAC closet is where they access their cable. That cable comes through from the hallway.
Well, in most apartments, it's above your kitchen ceiling. And so here's, for those of you who may not know, originally the ceilings at Regency Oaks, if you went into your kitchen and your entry corridor, the ceilings were mechanical. And so all the connections were above your ceiling in the kitchen. And when we started renovating the units back with Charmin, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we started taking out those mechanical ceilings, raising them about a foot, and we left all the piping for the fire suppression system and all the cabling and electrical runs right where they are, but we put a hard deck in there. And so that's where the problem is.
So there apparently, and I agree with what you just said, but apparently there are some units that Spectrum is able to come in and that cable, they can get to that cable.
Yeah.
Because they've checked all the connections.
Yeah. So in Bill's case, he says, well, hold on, Spectrum can come in and do it in my apartment. Why can't they do it in others? And the answer is, Bill is what we have, a combo unit. And so where we have taken two units side by side and converted them to one unit and made it one large unit instead of two smaller units, as part of those renovations, because we were moving walls around, we had the capability of also relocating some of the equipment up above the ceiling.
All right.
So that's probably why yours will work. All right.
Well, let me ask a question.
Sure.
Under this proposal, Who would be providing the modems and routers?
Spectrum.
Fine, and they do that. And
Yes.
one of the advantages with Spectrum is they have no contract. So if you don't like this particular piece of equipment, you just drive down East Bay Drive and say, here it is back, and there's no charge, and they're easy to work with.
Yeah.
Which is a big advantage.
Yeah, so Bill was pointing out for those who didn't hear that one of the advantages of Spectrum is there's no contract. It's if you're satisfied with the service, you pay the bill. If not, you take the equipment back and you have other options that are available.
Additionally,
Hold on. Would you hand Bill a mic so that we're going to get him on?
Okay. Additionally, with Spectrum, and now granted, not everybody has smart TVs, but the world is going to smart TVs. And with Spectrum, you can then stream their app, and you don't need any of this stuff.
That's true.
Okay. Now, obviously, you need the modem for your Wi-Fi, but you don't need your router.
Yeah. So to that point, he's correct. If you have a smart TV, you have the capability of streaming. If you prefer to stream as opposed to come off of the router. All right, next slide, Don. So bits and pieces. I've got just a couple of things to update you on here. Morning check-ins. Somehow this had a new thing had gotten started, and I just became aware of it. And so a number of residents have opted out of the check-in process. And this was done without my knowledge, but now that I'm aware of it, I'm having to go back and correct it. So if you are one of the handful of residents who have opted out of the morning check-in, I'm not going to go back and force you to do it, but we're not going to allow people to opt out going forward. It's a very unsafe practice. I cannot tell you how many times we've had individuals lay on the floor for an extended period of time, and the only way that they got help was that they didn't check in that next morning. They weren't wearing their pendant, and they were laid on the bathroom floor, and they couldn't reach the cord, whatever the circumstances. It's just not a safe practice to opt out of the morning check-in. We are a big believer in it, and it's one way to make sure that you made it through the night safely and that you are up and about. And so we are not going to, I've taken that authority away from the front desk. They are not going to be issuing opt-out letters anymore. And if you are a resident here at Regency Oaks, you are required to check in on a daily basis. And we do it for your safety and your protection and to keep from getting sued, right? So, town hall update. We are moving forward. So I understand, I have not seen it with my own two eyes, so I'm a little reluctant to say it, but I understand that the building permit is in our hands. It has been filed with the county. It leaves the building department, and you go down to the courthouse, and Schaefer, the contractor, has to file that along with the letter of commencement. And so I believe we are set and ready to go. Now, I've been trying to get the architect and the interior designer to come out and sit down with residents in a town hall meeting and start sharing some more information. But this time of the season, it's really difficult to get people to come out because it's not one person. It's the interior design team and the architect and the builder and the contractor. And so it's going to be 10 or 15 people who are going to come out and do a presentation. And I just haven't been able to get 10 or 15 people to have a date on a calendar. So I think that's probably going to roll until January. On the 22nd of this month, we do have the architect and the builder here. They're here all day, and it is the pre-construction meeting to talk about the flow and how it's going to work and what areas of the campus they need to shut down, and what safety measures they need to put in place, and where are they going to use the restroom, and just some of the basics of how do you do this kind of construction on campus that is still open, operating, and running. So we are still looking for a January construction start, and I think that at this point, I'm very comfortable saying that actually is going to happen. The health center kitchen renovation is underway, started last Friday. The health center kitchen was the only one of the kitchens on campus that had not been updated. All the finishes or all the equipment and the refrigerators and the freezers were all 30 years old. And the team over there have done a great job of maintaining it and keeping it running, but it literally was on its last legs. And so that renovation is underway. This renovation is a little different than our kitchen renovations because it's a licensed building. We had to bring in a portable kitchen, and all the food prep is occurring in the portable kitchen because you're not able to cook it off-site and bring it over without subjecting Regency Oaks to the same standards as what you'd find in ACA. For the healthcare. So that is underway. We're thinking it's 12 to 16 weeks construction. So we hope to be back open sometime the start of the second quarter.
Excuse me, how are the folks getting their meals?
So the portable kitchen, if you go over there, it's fascinating. There are a couple of trailers. It looks like food carts that you'd see on the side of the road. And all of the meals are being done out of these portable kitchens. And it's crazy. There's a plastic sheathing that has to run the entire length of the walkway from the portable trailer to the dining room, and just for prevent contaminations and airborne particulates, and it's pretty crazy. So remember that movie E.T.? And they went and found the ET, and there were all the bubbles and the hazmat suits. It looks a little like that. Northwood floors. If you haven't seen the Northwood floors, the north floors, the wood floors over in the north building, are 16 years old, and they are actually wood floors. Everything else that we've used is a laminate product that will hold up, because the thought was these wood floors would never last. Well, I'll be darned if they haven't lasted 16 years. And they look okay, but they were getting a little dull. And Jesse found a company to come out and sand them down. Light sand, put some polish on it, buff it up to a high sheen, and they really look great. So if you haven't seen the north floors, please be sure to take a look and let Jesse know how nice they look.
On every floor or just certain floors?
Every floor, every wood floor over there. And now I'm not sure they're all done. I know the first floor is done, and he was working on the other floors. Next slide, please. Odds and ends. FOB update is still happening. Is never going to happen this month. It was scheduled to happen this month. I think the vendor has not said, but I think the vendor is probably having the same problem we're having, and everybody else in America is having. It's a great idea, but they can't get the parts, and so. The FOB update is paid for, it's approved, it's paid for, it's going to happen, but they need a lot of parts. They're doing a ton of doors, and so as soon as they have all their supplies ready to go, we'll get that implemented. Handicap parking. I wanted to, that was a great intro. Handicap parking. So Regency Oaks does not have a horse in this race. But this is causing there's been some discussion about handicap parking.
I'm not sure I
And
understand.
I don't either. And so I'm just going to tell you the story, and then I'll let you do whatever you want. The law here in Clearwater is there is no overnight parking in a handicap spot. And then there's a second one that says you cannot park in a handicap parking spot for more than 3 consecutive days. You have to change to a different spot. Now that's what the law says. And we had a resident here, Mr. Osterman. Anyone remember him? He's a North Building resident. So he had a car, and he was a retired police officer, and he used to park his car in the handicap parking. And our team went around and left him a nice note saying, you really shouldn't park here because it is against Clearwater rules and regulations. And it got carried up to the council, and it became a topic at Tuesday Talk. And so what we told Mr. Osterberg at the time, and what is still true, Regency Oaks doesn't have a horse in this fight, but what you're doing is against the law, and if you continue to do it, your car might get towed. Now, Regency Oaks never called the cops, but a resident who was annoyed that he was parking in the handicap parking spot, and it was taking it from everyone else who wanted to park in the handicap spot, called the police one night. The police came out and they ticketed him, and it was a pretty expensive ticket. It was a couple of $100. And he said, well, they can't do that. This is crazy. This is private property. And we said, we're private property, but we're subject to the same rules and law as everyone else in Clearwater. Don't park your car there. Well, he continued to park his car there, and the second night they came and they towed his car. And it ended up costing him almost $600 between the ticket and the tow and picking it up. So park wherever you would like. I'm not going to call the cops, but I can't say that is true about your neighbor. So the law says don't park in handicap parking overnight, and don't park in a handicap parking for more than 3 consecutive days, because you may get a ticket or a tow, and I'm trying to help you keep from that happening. And just one other piece on this: if you do get your car ticketed or towed, don't come see me. I'm not paying for it. Okay, so there's that update. This week, weather permitting, the exterior wall around the property is going to be power washed and resealed, just to make sure that the mortar continues to be solid, and that we continue to look nice on the exterior.
What about the wood?
What about the wood?
The wood fence?
What about the wood fence?
It doesn't look lovely.
What does that mean? Help
It
me.
has mildew, pieces of boards missing.
Is there any particular area?
I see the south side fence mostly, but
Okay.
the north going out is mildewy.
Okay. We'll take a look at that. We'll just make a note of that, please. It's some of the fencing is not ours, and some of the fencing is. And in fact, in some area over here on the south side, the fencing had looked so bad that we just put up our own fence on our side of the property, so that we didn't have to look at that eyesore. But I'll talk to Darwin and make sure that if it's our fence, we're maintaining it. New model rooms. So the one over in the south building, and it is in A406. Yes, A406. A406. So that is it's done, and they started putting the furniture in place yesterday. And oh my goodness, okay. So they started putting the furniture in place today, and we'll have that cleaned up and ready to go. over the course of the next week, stop by and see it. It really is something that's pretty special. It's our concept of taking our Hamiltons and Franklin. Those are the units that we have the majority of in terms of vacancies. 80% of all our vacancies are Hamiltons and Franklins. Those are our small units, and we've completely reimagined it. We've put in an island and pendants and a farm sink, and we've blown out the doors on the Hamilton and completely opened it up. We've upgraded the showers and crown molding and lanais, glassed-in lanais. And so it's a different a marketing approach, so that when people come in and they take the unit, that these small units, and they have an option. If price is most important to you, we'll give you a discount. If value and amenities are more important to you, you pay full price. And so it just gives one more option that we think we can leverage to try to drive additional sales. They really came out nice, and you'll have to go and look at it over the next week or so.
Will the door be unlocked so we can peek in?
It will be. Don't do it today because there's still hanging drapes, and Jesse needs to get in and deep clean it. But yes, during the day, we'll leave the door unlocked so that you can go and take a look.
Thank you.
What is the number again?
A406.
Not for us.
Yay.
Not 407.
It's a yay.
Don't, okay.
I have 5.
And then the last piece here is the shuffleboard courts. If you haven't seen them, they did finish those up yesterday, and there were some pretty significant cracks. Darwin and I were out testing it this morning, and the puck seems to cross the new surface without any problems now. And so they look nice, and I think you'll be pleased with those. Next slide. Earl Kerr. Stand up, and let's all give Earl a big round of applause. Anyone who knows Earl knows that for 10 years, maybe more, he's been pushing solar projects. And he's met with CEOs and key officers at Brookdale, at LCS, at Peak, and he's been pushing and prodding and cajoling, and we finally were able to get a solar project, a demonstration project approved. Earl, we couldn't have done it without your strong vocal support. So we're going to do a 25 panel out over the where all the company cars are parked, because that has the best sun. It's going to generate 7.75 kilowatts. That's about $46,000 in electrical savings over a 25-year period. And it's the equivalent of if you had a carbon tax if you were a liberal and wanted a carbon tax for not going green, it would amount to 4,720 trees being planted, or the equivalent of taking 38 cars off the road, or savings of 429 barrels of gas, and that's per year, not consumed. So I'm really excited about this project, and again, Earl, we couldn't have done it without your consistent and persistent pushing and prodding us along. So, all right, I think that's the last slide. All right. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.